She was just a signal. Until she changed the whole universe. I followed a mysterious signal across the galaxy. And found her a glowing alien child whose fear could change the weather. Then her mother appeared. A fugitive queen. And she told me, to protect my daughter, you must marry me. In 30 days. Or the planet dies. We pretended. We made a deal. 30 days. No feelings. But Kyriva the planet wasn't fooled. It read us. Every touch, every glance, every emotion, shaped the sky. And that's when I realized. This wasn't about law. Or survival. This was about a bond so deep, it could bring dead worlds back to life. Chapter 1, The Signal That Shouldn't Exist. The static crackled again, sharp, deliberate, wrong. Elias Voss squinted at the spectral readout dancing across his sensor grid. The pulse had returned, a rhythmic ping that shouldn't exist, not out here. Not on Kyriva 6. Unknown signal source. Pattern anomaly detected. Tri-frequency interference, his onboard AI intoned. Yeah, no kidding, Elias muttered, fingers flying across the hollow interface. Kyriva 6 was supposed to be a dead rock. Class X quarantine status. High atmospheric instability. No known civilizations. No life signs. No anything. Just dust, ancient ruins, and myth. So why was it transmitting? He adjusted the scope and leaned in. There it was again, a child's voice. Just a few syllables, unintelligible, echoing like it had been dragged through a dozen different dimensions before reaching him. Then silence. Elias sat back in the pilot seat of the Sable Finch, a compact Explorer-class ship from Earth's outer signal core. He'd been chasing ghost signals for most of his career, deep space anomalies, failed colonies, wayward probes. But nothing had ever called to him like this one. A flicker of movement outside the window snapped his focus. The violet mist over Kyriva's horizon shifted, like it had noticed him. He swallowed. Finch, prepare descent vector. Override quarantine. Mark destination, signal origin A7-13. The AI hesitated. Warning, planetary descent violates Confederation protocols. I'll take the heat, Elias said, heart thudding. Lock coordinates. I'm going down. The ship shuddered as it sliced through Kyriva's turbulent sky. Wind screamed. Static howled. He gritted his teeth as violet lightning cracked across the stratosphere, illuminating ridges of glowing crystal mountains far below. The terrain was shifting in real-time breathing. As he neared the surface, his instruments blinked wildly. Gravity spikes. Temperature flux. A low thrumming beneath the hull, like music just beyond hearing. The planet was alive. And it was waiting for him. The crash was softer than expected, if you could call any emergency landing soft. His ship belly scraped a field of pulsing moss before finally grinding to a halt in a crater of silvery dust. Emergency lights flickered. Smoke curled from a ruptured vent. He grabbed his pack and stepped out into the unknown. The silence was unnatural thick and listening. The air smelled like ozone and wildflowers. He walked toward the origin of the signal, every footstep sinking slightly into the glowing terrain. And then he heard it. A sob. Small. Fragile. Human. He turned the corner past a shimmering rock outcrop and stopped cold. In a hollow, surrounded by curling ferns and bioluminescent vines, sat a girl. Or something like a girl. Her skin was a soft opalescent blue, her hair braided in silken white threads. Eyes too large for her face glowed with ethereal light. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She clutched a torn blanket to her chest. When she saw him, she backed up fast, fear splashed across every delicate feature. Hey, it's okay, Elias said, holding up his hands. I'm not here to hurt you. The girl blinked at him. A gust of wind swept through the clearing, and the plants leaned toward her like nervous pets. I'm Elias, he said softly. I heard your signal. I came to help. The girl stared, silent. He knelt, lowering his pack slowly. Do you have a name? She hesitated, then whispered, voice trembling. Naira. The wind calmed. The vines stopped swaying. And the air itself seemed to breathe out. That's when his wrist scanner went berserk. Warning, biofield detected. Genetic resonance levels at 78%. Planetary response imminent. What the hell? Elias turned to look back toward his ship and gasped. The sky had changed. The storm clouds were parting above them, revealing a ribbon of clear twilight that hadn't existed minutes ago. The violet lightning had faded. The wind was still. He turned back to the girl. She looked up at him with those strange, ancient eyes. And then just for a second she smiled. The plants bloomed in unison. The planet had made its choice. And Elias Voss had just become a father. Chapter 2, The Child Who Changed the Sky. Naira wouldn't let go of his hand. Elias had led her back to the crash site, one cautious step at a time, but every time he tried to break contact even to check a reading her grip tightened. And every time she tensed, the wind returned, curling around them like a storm held on a leash. He adjusted his pace, slower now, matching hers. Her bare feet made no sound in the dust, and where they stepped, the glowing moss shifted color from violet to gold. The planet was still responding to her. Or was it, to them? Inside the sable finch, Elias activated the med scanner, swiping it gently across her small frame. No translation chip. No standard implants. The data it spat back was messy, unreadable. Her cellular structure didn't match any known species in the Confederation database. Yet, there was something familiar in her genome. A signature. A resonance. He frowned. How is that even possible? Naira tilted her head, mimicking his expression. She was watching him closely. Mimicking more than his face. His tone, his movements, his thoughts. He retrieved a ration bar from storage and broke it in half. She sniffed it cautiously, then took the smaller piece with both hands. When she chewed, the cabin lights flickered softly like the ship itself was sighing in relief. I don't know what you are, kid, Elias muttered. But you're not an accident. The ship's console beeped. Incoming transmission. Encrypted unknown source. Language untranslated. Bio channel active. What the? Elias tapped the COMM. A burst of harmonic static flooded the cabin, making Naira flinch. She backed into the corner, eyes wide, and the floor shivered beneath her. The screen flashed. Symbols unfurled fluid and fractal. Then a shape began to form. A figure. Humanoid. Tall. Elegant. Unmistakably alien. Her skin shimmered like obsidian dipped in moonlight. Silver markings pulsed along her arms like living tattoos. She wore a cloak that rippled with encoded data, and her gaze, when it met Elias's, was like staring into deep time. You have taken the child, the voice said, feminine, layered, vibrating on multiple frequencies. Now you must face what follows. The image flickered and resolved further. Elias felt his chest tighten, The woman in the transmission had Nair's eyes. "You're her mother," he breathed. "I am Sci-Fi, Queen of the Caravan Fold. And you are now her anchor." The word slammed into Elias like a physical force. His console sparked, flickered, and went dark. Outside, the sky rippled like patterns dancing like auroras in reverse. Sci-Fi's voice continued, calm and absolute. "Kyriva has chosen. You touched the child. You shared breath. You offered comfort. The bond is complete." "Wait, what bond?" She was alone. I helped her." "Your intention matters little. The core responds only to truth. You have stabilized her. And now, you must stabilize me." Elias's jaw dropped. "Stabilize you? Lady, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a diplomat. You are her family now. And by our law, you are my betrothed." The connection cut instantly. Silence descended inside the ship. Elias turned to Naira, who had already crawled into his seat, hugging her knees and watching him. "You could have warned me," he muttered. She blinked, then whispered, voice small and sincere. "You're nice. Mama needs nice." The wind outside howled softly, but it wasn't angry this time. It was waiting. Waiting for Elias Voss to decide. Run. Or stay. Chapter 3, Enter the Queen. Elias didn't sleep. Not because he wasn't tired, he was exhausted, but because the planet wouldn't let him. Every time his thoughts wandered toward escape, or doubt, or fear, the wind outside would kick up. The lights would flicker. The ship would creak like it was holding its breath. And Naira? She slept curled beside the console like she'd done it 100 times before. As if the chaos was familiar. As if she knew something he didn't. By dawn, if you could call the pale shimmer across Kyriva's twin suns at dawn, Elias stood outside the Finch, staring at the horizon. And then, she came. No warning. No roar of engines. No sonic boom. The sky peeled back, light folding into itself, and from that wound in the clouds descended something Elias could only describe as living architecture. Not a ship. A being. A crescent of polished metal and organic crystal that pulsed with intelligence. It didn't land, it grew roots, anchoring itself into the rock. A ramp unfurled like a petal. And from within, Queen Sci-Fi stepped onto the earth. She was taller than he expected, but not in stature or in presence. Every movement was intentional. Her cloak whispered across the ground like it carried its own gravity. Her silver blue eyes locked onto Elias the way a blade finds its sheath. He opened his mouth to speak something diplomatic, something scientific, something rational, but she spoke first. "So, you're the man who touched my daughter." Elias blinked. I didn't mean she was scared. Alone. I only helped her." And the planet responded. Sci-Fi stepped closer, and for the first time, Elias noticed the subtle flickers of light trailing behind her feet. The environment was sinking to her. Colors deepened. Air thickened. Time slowed. "You stabilized the Simfrost core," she said quietly, her voice layered and beautiful and cold. "Whether you meant to or not, you completed the bond." Elias's hands curled into fists. "This whole bond thing, what does it actually mean?" She studied him for a moment, then lifted her wrist. A projection bloomed in the air, an ancient scroll encoded with spiraling glyphs and holographic DNA sequences. According to Caravan law, anyone who initiates the core's stabilization through direct contact becomes an anchor, guardian, and legally, a mate. Elias took a step back. You're saying I have to marry you because I saved your daughter? The core responds to trios: child, parent, anchor. Without resonance between all three, the system destabilizes. The child sickens. The planet dies. He stared at her. Sci-Fi, in her impossible elegance, looked down at the girl still asleep behind the Finch's window. You gave her something no one else could, she said softly. Gentleness. Safety. She reached for you in the dark, and the world changed. Elias shook his head. This is absurd. I'm not part of your world. I'm just a man trying to survive a bad landing. Sci-Fi's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes tightened. Then survive. Enter into temporary union. 30 days. Proximity. Resonance. No intimacy required. Elias stared at her. You've done this before, haven't you? He said, voice quieter now. She didn't answer right away. But when she did, it wasn't with arrogance, it was with something else. Weariness. No, I only know how to command. How to protect. Not how to share. Silence stretched between them. Then Nair's small voice cut through it like sunlight through fog. Mama. She stood barefoot in the doorway of the ship, arms outstretched. And Sci-Fi, her poise crumbling just a fraction, ran to her daughter and knelt in the dust. Naira, she whispered, gathering her clothes. Oh stars, you're safe. Elias watched them, something stirring inside him he hadn't felt in years. Something dangerous. Something human. 30 days, he asked finally. Sci-Fi looked up, surprised. He held out his hand. Temporary arrangement. No feelings. No complications. Her fingertips brushed his. And the sky shifted again, bluer this time. Like the planet had just exhaled. Chapter 4, The Resonance Pact. 30 days. That's what they agreed. No feelings. No complications. No real marriage, just proximity. Elias thought it sounded simple enough. Until she moved in. The habitat module they set up near the ship was small, intended for 1. 2 at best. Now it held 3 lives, and one of them didn't know how to sleep without wrapping her hand around Elias's wrist like a lifeline. Sci-Fi, for her part, wasted no time asserting her version of order. She rearranged furniture to precise angles aligned with Kairovan emotional flow grids. She neutralized his food supplies, claiming human preservatives were energetically disruptive. She adjusted the lighting to a soft violet hue because Nair's nervous system responded better to empathic wavelengths. Elias kept telling himself, this is fine. It's temporary. 30 days. But every time their shoulders brushed while passing in the kitchen. Every time Naira fell asleep curled between them like a starfish child of 2 worlds. Every time Sci-Fi looked at him with those unreadable eyes full of restraint. His thoughts turned less scientific. More human. The resonance protocol required shared routine. So they did everything together, meal times. Learning modules. Even breath synchronization sessions designed to deepen subconscious bonding. Elias rolled his eyes the first time they tried one. By the 5th session, he felt it. A pulse. A hum beneath his skin. A presence that wasn't entirely his own. You're sinking, Sci-Fi said one evening, voice soft but clinical. I'm reacting to stimuli, he shot back. But later that night, when Naira had fallen asleep beneath a drift of glowing vines, Elias stood under the open sky and admitted something to the wind. He hadn't felt this close to anyone in years. One afternoon, as they worked in the soil, planting caravan bioflora, Sci-Fi paused beside him. She wasn't wearing her royal armor, just a simple utility wrap, dark against her skin. Stray strands of silver hair escaped her braid, and a smear of soil traced her cheekbone. Elias looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, he didn't see a queen, or an alien, or even a problem. He saw a woman carrying more weight than any one being should have to bear. And sharing it anyway. You don't have to keep pretending this is only protocol, he said, quietly. Sci-Fi didn't respond. She only reached out, and brushed the dirt from his collar. Chapter 5, Echoes of Another Life. The ancient structure stood half buried in sand, silent, gleaming, alive. Elias had been scanning its surface for hours, tracing its fractal patterns, cross-referencing the materials with Earth's known alloys. Nothing matched. It was pre-Caravan. Pre-Confederation. Pre-everything. Yet the moment his fingers grazed the carved glyphs near the entrance, the door sighed open like it recognized him. Inside, dark halls pulsing with blue veins of light. This place is older than your throne, Elias whispered, glancing at Sci-Fi beside him. Older than Kyriv itself, she replied. This is one of the first cores. As they stepped deeper, walls bloomed with memory projections, ghostly recordings of those who had built this place. Architects. Dreamers. Scientists. And then, a face. A human face. Projected in the air, grainy but unmistakable. A woman in an old Earth exosuit, cataloging notes beside a Caravan elder. Dr. Arlen Voss, the recording stated. Establishing harmonic interface trial 1. Elias froze. Sci-Fi turned sharply. Voss. He nodded, pulse racing. My great-grandmother. She disappeared on a long-range mapping mission near this sector. Presumed dead. The projection continued. Emotional resonance appears to override environmental entropy. With proper triadic connection, planetary biosystems stabilize rapidly. Sci-Fi stepped forward, breath caught. This is the original theory of the core? Elias touched the image, and it flickered and glowed. The ground beneath him shifted. The very walls of the structure began to breathe, recognizing him not just as a visitor but as legacy. You're connected to this, Sci-Fi whispered. Your blood carries the origin. The core responds to you. I'm just an analyst, Elias murmured. But the walls disagreed. Outside, the wind changed direction. The sky pulsed gold. Vines bloomed in patterns that hadn't existed hours before. Sci-Fi turned to him. You're not here by accident. For once, Elias couldn't argue. Because deep inside, something was waking up. Something that felt suspiciously like destiny. Chapter 6, A Queen Who Doesn't Sleep. Elias woke to quiet. Not the usual quiet, muted breathing, rustling leaves, the low hum of the habitat's environmental systems, but a total absence. The kind of silence that made him sit up in bed, heart ticking like a countdown. The cot beside him was empty. Naira, predictably, had migrated to the foot of his bed sometime in the night, curled around her toy vine beast. But the other room, Sci-Fi's, was dark. Unused. Again. He threw on a thermal layer and stepped out into the pale pre-dawn, violet mist curling around his boots. The air was cool, damp with dew, and alive with the pulse of a planet that now felt like it had breath and mood and memory. He found her where he always did. On the observation ridge above their dome, standing perfectly still, like a sculpture carved from starlight and sorrow. Do you ever sleep? He asked, stepping up beside her. Sci-Fi didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where Kyriva's twin moons, one silver, one ember red, slowly orbited each other in the sky. Sleep dulls the senses. I can't afford dullness. It's not weakness, Elias said gently. It's vulnerability. Her voice was quiet. The last time I let myself rest, I woke to find my world had fallen. My people betrayed. My daughter, nearly gone. The words hung in the air between them, heavier than gravity. You think if you let go, even for a second, everything will collapse, he said. She turned to him, and her eyes, those impenetrable, silver-lit eyes, softened just a little. Yes. A beat. Elias took a breath. You know, I used to be the same. Sci-Fi blinked. He looked out toward the dawn, letting the memories surface like a wound he'd kept buried under protocol and equations. Years ago, I was stationed on Glia's 12. Medical team. There was a breach. Biowarfare pathogen got loose. We had 12 minutes to seal the facility. My partner, she stayed behind. Made the call I couldn't. He laughed, bitterly. After that, I stopped connecting. I thought, if I didn't love, I couldn't lose. And now. He looked at her, truly looked. At the silver tracing her collarbone. The faint shadows beneath her eyes. The way she stood like someone always ready for battle, but aching to be held. Now I'm in too deep, he said. And I think you are too. She didn't deny it. Instead, she stepped closer just enough that their arms brushed. The planet reacts to us, she murmured. To what we feel. When you touched me yesterday, the vines bloomed in winter pattern. That's not possible. Maybe the laws of your world don't apply to us anymore? Or maybe, she whispered, we've become the law. They stood there, side by side, as the first light of morning spilled over the horizon. And in that golden hour, something shifted, not just in the air, but in them. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was real. Connection. Mutual gravity. The kind of pull that even a planet had no choice but to obey. Chapter 7, The Trial of Truth. To become real, you must be seen. All of you. The chamber pulsed with a low, rhythmic hum like a heartbeat carved into stone. Elias stood inside a structure older than any data archive could date, buried beneath the hills northeast of their habitat. Sci-Fi stood opposite him, tall and still, her expression unreadable. And between them, Naira, glowing faintly, her tiny fingers cradling a living crystal that pulsed in perfect time with her breath. This was the Entanglement Sanctuary. The place where Kyrivan's soul bonds were tested not through words or law, but through resonance. It doesn't have to be romantic, Sci-Fi had said an hour earlier. It just has to be honest. But that's what frightened Elias the most. Because beneath all his sarcasm and logic, all his rational defenses, there were parts of him no one had ever seen. Not on Earth. Not in space. Not even himself. The chamber responded to their presence. Walls of smooth crystal flickered with symbols and phantom memories from the core. The AI construct that ran the trial, a spectral being of light and voice, neither machine nor mind, descended slowly from the ceiling. You seek verification, it intoned, voice like wind through stars. A trial of entanglement. Neural transparency. Emotional disclosure. To resonate in harmony, you must show everything. Elias glanced at Sci-Fi. She didn't blink. Proceed, she said. The floor beneath them shimmered, becoming translucent. Naira stepped back to a raised dais, her crystal glowing brighter. Begin the merge. There was no countdown. Just light. And then everything fell away. His father's cold, quiet absence. The labs where he learned to measure feelings in molecules instead of faces. The time he laughed with a woman named Alira, and how that laugh was stolen by her death in a sealed dome. Then came the guilt. So much of it. Layered under routine. Masked with data. How he buried love so deeply inside himself he forgot where he left it. I didn't know how to be close, his voice echoed inside the merge. So I didn't try. Then saw Ellery. Her crown at 7 cycles old. The weight of prophecy. Her first lesson in betrayal, taught by a counselor she once called uncle. Her arranged marriage contract. The blood on her chamber floor after the palace uprising. Then Nair's first cry. The only sound that ever unraveled her composure. I became a queen by force, her voice whispered in the void. But I became a mother by choice. She showed the moment she found Naira missing after the core breach. The day she swore she'd give anything, any part of herself to bring her child peace. Even if it meant marrying a stranger from a dying world. Even if it meant opening the locked chamber of her heart. Their memories twined. Patterns spiraled. And then, they were no longer separate. Elias saw himself through Ellery's eyes, cautious, sharp, loyal to a fault. He felt how his voice calmed her when nothing else could. How his presence made Nair's heart steady, made the wind slow. And she saw herself through his, not cold, not cruel, but holding back a dam of grief behind eyes that had seen too much too soon. The merge climaxed in a single flash, blinding, infinite. They collapsed together to the floor, gasping, hand in hand. The AI construct hovered silently. Verification complete, it said. The chamber glowed gold. Naira ran to them, throwing her arms around both. You did it, she beamed. Elias pulled her close, still dazed. Saw Ellery's fingers tighten in his. So what now? He asked, breathless. Saw Ellery's voice was steady, quiet. Now, we stop pretending. She reached up and touched his cheek, not as part of the trial, not as part of a contract, but as something real. Something chosen. Outside the chamber, the wind shifted. Above ground, trees bloomed across the hills in spirals of iridescent blue, their roots reaching out to one another. The planet had seen their truth. And it believed in them. Chapter 8, The Storm That Killed the Sky. When harmony breaks, the world remembers how to bleed. The day started with flowers. Golden vines blooming across the ridge. Wildlife returning to the edges of their camp. A new warmth in the wind that made Naira giggle as she chased the soft pollen orbs floating like glowing soap bubbles. For the first time since Elias arrived, Kyrva felt like a home. Even the planet itself seemed to be celebrating their verified bond. Their shared dream the night before had ended in color and endless sky, refracting memories and futures alike. And yet, just after the midday meal, everything changed. The alert came through Elias's scanner, first a sharp, aggressive spike in atmospheric pressure that shouldn't exist. Not here. Not now. He stepped outside the dome, eyes narrowing at the horizon. A black line. Thin at first, then widening, boiling toward them. That's not weather, he muttered. That's. The wind hit like a punch to the chest. Ellery was already at his side, cloak flaring behind her like the wings of something ancient. We're under attack, she said flatly. He's found us. Elias's stomach dropped. He. Varantal. Exiled commander. My former fiancé. He wants the core. Naira, The sky turned crimson. Lightning webbed across it, not from clouds but from metal. A ship emerged, jagged and brutal, shaped like a predator's spine. It screamed into the atmosphere, punching a crater into the valley below. The impact sent shockwaves through the entire forest. Their shelter cracked. Their harmonized vines withered instantly. The resonance field stabilized only days ago began to fray. He's using a harmonic destabilizer, Elias realized, checking readings. He's targeting us. Our bond. Sci'Elry's voice dropped to a whisper. He means to tear us apart, and let the planet die. Elias grabbed Neira, tucking her under his arm as the dome lights flickered violently. Outside, kinetic drones began to descend, cutting through trees and vines with whirring blades. The ground trembled beneath them. You have to hide, Elias said to Sci'Elry. You and Neira go now. But Sci'Elry stepped closer instead, eyes blazing. I will not run again. Then let me fight. He turned to her, heart pounding. I can distract him. You stabilize the field. If we lose the resonance, we'll lose everything. Neira clung to them both, her small voice shaking. Don't fight apart, she begged. You're stronger together. Elias knelt, brushing her hair back. We are together. Always. Even when apart. Elias sprinted across the valley floor as drones swarmed. He moved like someone possessed, less soldier, more conductor, orchestrating the storm. Using rocks and echo points, he rerouted signal interference, buying time while Sci'Elry climbed the old sanctuary tower to boost the core. Then came Varantal. A shadow on the wind. Descending with armor that absorbed light, his voice amplified by a resonance disruptor. You don't belong here, human. This world doesn't need your kind of love. Elias stared him down. That's fine. I'm not here for your approval. They collided. Varan fought like a god, fluid, cruel, precise. But Elias fought like someone who had everything to lose. For every blow, he remembered Sci'Elry's voice in the early morning, Neira's laugh in the golden moss, the way the planet bloomed when she reached for his hand. He didn't fight to win. He fought to protect. Suddenly a scream. From the sky. From the core. Neira. The bond was unraveling. Sci'Elry screamed as a wave of null energy shot from the sanctuary tower, knocking her flat. Varan surged forward, intent on finishing Elias off. But Kyra intervened. The ground cracked and the planet fought back. Vines surged like tendrils of rage, wrapping Varan mid-strike. The crystal beneath Elias's feet pulsed, reacting to his rage, his grief, his love. Enough! Elias plunged a harmonic blade into the ground, created from one of Sci'Elry's own forged circuits. The pulse sent a wave of pure resonance across the valley. The drones dropped instantly. Varan screamed, his disruptor imploding before being hurled into the fractured earth, swallowed whole. Silence followed. And then, light. Elias staggered up the ridge to find Sci'Elry collapsed beside Neira, holding her daughter to her chest, crying openly. She looked up as he approached, mud-covered, bruised, limping, and rose without a word. She crossed to him. And without hesitation, without pretense, kissed him. The kind of kiss born of death postponed, love unspoken, and finally, freedom claimed. When their lips parted, the valley was already healing. The vines returned. The sky turned soft again. And Neira, glowing between them, whispered. Now the planet knows. You're not pretending anymore. Chapter 9, A Heart That Can Heal Worlds. She is not just a child. She is the memory of 1,000 stars and the promise of one more chance. The valley was still. A hush blanketed the landscape where only hours ago, chaos had reigned. Cracked stone had healed. Wildflowers bloomed in impossible patterns across the wreckage. The skies above, once torn by energy storms, now shimmered with soft golden light. But inside Elias, the storm had only just begun. Nero lay in the central chamber of the sanctuary tower, surrounded by a protective lattice of biocrystals. Her eyes were closed. Her skin glowed faintly. Her breathing shallow, uneven. She absorbed the destabilizer, Sci-Fi whispered, pacing near the perimeter, hands trembling. She shielded us, with the core? Elias sat beside Nera, his fingers gently brushing the ridges of her palm. I thought it was just a symbol, he murmured. The core. The resonance. The harmony thing. Sci-Fi turned sharply, eyes rimmed red. No. It's older than symbolism. Older than my people. Older than this planet. She stepped closer, kneeling beside them both. The Simfrost core is a living relic, a fragment of the original song. The force that once connected not just families, but worlds. Elias looked at her, stunned. Song. She nodded. Every world in the bonded constellation has its own harmony. Its own rhythm. When families resonate, when they love, and protect, and choose one another, it stabilizes the planet's own emotional field. When that bond fractures, everything unravels. Elias looked back to Nera, heart thudding. So she's not just your daughter? She's our last chance. The sanctuary lit up, sensing their pain, their questions. In the air above Nera's chest, the core flickered awake. Not as an object, but as a memory. A projection bloomed, a vision of the original caravans, thousands of years ago, forming the first triadic bond. The child between them lit with power so radiant, the planet itself awakened from dormancy. And then, planet after planet followed suit. A chain of resonance. A living network of empathy-based physics. Until something went wrong. They tried to manufacture it, Sci-Fi whispered, watching the hologram of history. They tried to bottle love. Predict it. Engineer it. But love doesn't follow rules. It's not measurable, even if it's real. The core shattered in the past. The connection failed. Wars followed. Worlds turned to dust. And then Kairva hit a fragment. One final piece of the true resonance. Carried forward in blood, through generations. Now resting, in Nera. Elias felt the pull in his chest. The same pull he felt the moment she looked at him on the valley floor, clutching that blanket and shaking like a leaf. He thought it was coincidence. He thought he just happened to be the one who found her. But now he knew. She chose me, he said softly. Sci-Fi met his eyes, voice shaking. Because your heart was open. And because you're connected to the original line. Your ancestor, Dr. Arlen Voss, helped shape the first resonance field. You're not just her guardian, Elias. You're the key. The chamber dimmed. Nera stirred. Her lips moved, barely audible. Cold. Without hesitation, Elias took her hand. Sci-Fi moved beside him, pressing her palm to Nera's forehead. She's stable, she whispered. But the core is fracturing inside her. She can't contain its power alone anymore. She needs completion. You mean the bond? Yes. Not just verified. Not ceremonial. Real. Emotional. Absolute. Elias stared at the child who had turned his life inside out. The woman who had guarded her with teeth and silence. And the planet that had bloomed at their feet when they finally admitted the truth. Then let's give her what she needs. He rose, took Sci-Fi's hand. Let's do what none of them could. She looked at him, eyes bright, breath unsteady. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As their hands met, the core inside Nero lit like a star. Tendrils of light spiraled through the chamber, touching every surface, rewriting the sanctuary's song in real time. The harmonics were no longer unstable. They were complete. Neira's eyes fluttered open. Her first word was, home. She sat up, the core embedded in her chest now pulsing in time with her heartbeat, all three of them. And in that moment, the resonance field didn't just stabilize, it expanded. Across the planet, trees bloomed. Across the system, dead satellites reignited. And across the stars, other long-dormant planets registered a signal. A call. A pulse. A song of return. Chapter 10, The Union Ceremony. To love by law is duty. To love by choice is destiny. The caravan sky had changed again. Not from weather, or war, or the subtle mood shifts of the planet's responsive ecosystem. This time, the sky changed because the world itself was celebrating. Clouds spiraled like petals. Light broke across the valley in braids of silver and violet. Flowers bloomed in places where nothing had grown in centuries. The planet was alive, and for the first time in memory, it was singing. The sanctuary's central chamber had been transformed. Not by design, not by decree, but by resonance. The walls shimmered with moving light, refracting memories and emotions like stained glass made from consciousness itself. A long platform of woven vine crystal curved through the room. At its end, a raised circle of floating stone awaited. There were no guards. No advisors. No crowds. Only Neira, radiant in a simple white tunic, the core in her chest pulsing steadily. Only Elias and Sci-Fi, hands linked, standing together not as strangers trapped by law, but as two souls who had stopped running. Are you nervous? Elias asked, half a smile tugging at his lips. I've faced assassins, political trials, and planetary coups, Sci-Fi said, tone cool. Then, after a pause. But yes. Terribly. He laughed under his breath. Good. Me too. They stepped forward together, Nero walking between them, fingers curled around theirs. Above them, a projection formed, cast not by machines, but by the planet itself. The core's consciousness had awakened, and now it presided like an ancient spirit returning to complete what had begun long ago. Its voice, if you could call it a voice, was a chord, a blend of Elias's laugh, Sci-Fi's breath, and Neira's heartbeat. This is not a ceremony of empire, it spoke. Not of power. Or survival. But of completion. Do you, Elias Voss, of the Wandering Stars, take this union not by duty, but by the full gravity of your choosing? Elias looked at Sci-Fi, her silver gaze, her scars, her steel, and felt the truth settle in his bones. I do. And do you, Sci-Fi of the Fold, sovereign of the broken line, take this man not to secure your legacy but to rebuild your heart? Her lips trembled. But she did not flinch. I do. The light between them pulsed. Neira stepped back, placing a hand on each of their chests. Now kiss, she whispered, grinning. They both laughed, too human, too soft for royalty, and leaned forward. This time, when they kissed, it wasn't tentative. It wasn't curious. It was declaration. And the planet responded. Across Kyriva, the resonance field surged. The energy they generated through choice, love, and shared will rippled outward, activating long-dormant seed cores beneath the surface. Towers of ancient light rose from the earth. The bioarchitecture of the old Kyrivan cities reformed, shaped not by tools but by feeling. And beyond that, through the stellar currents of the resonance web, the bond triggered a signal. Dozens of other worlds blinked awake. Systems that had been cold, derelict, lost, now glowing, responding, waiting. That night, the stars shone brighter. The air smelled of salt and bloom. And inside the sanctuary's garden, under the gently glowing canopy of vine lanterns, Elias and Sci-Fi sat with Naira between them, her head resting against her mother's shoulder, her fingers wrapped in Elias's shirt. "I never thought I'd have this," Sci-Fi murmured. "A throne?" Elias asked. "No, a night that doesn't end in war. A place. A family." He looked at her, her crown forgotten, her walls lowered. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "Neither are you." Chapter 11, Harmony Unleashed. What began as survival became a signal. What became a signal, became a calling. It started with a moss. In the early dawn after the Union, Elias noticed it first spreading across the rocks near the sanctuary's southern edge, glowing faintly blue. Not violet, not gold blue. A color not seen on Kyriv in centuries. He ran a scan. The reading came back impossible. "Simfron class moss," he whispered. "From Viralis 3. A bonded world, long thought dead." He turned to Sci-Fi, heart pounding. This isn't just Kyriv responding anymore. The signal's spreading. She looked at the sky, where one of Kyriv's moons shimmered with a silver haze. They are waking up. In the deep jungle ruins of Ilaner Prime, vines once dormant for 1,000 years bloom in spirals of gold. A child hears laughter echo through the trees, though she is alone. On Tarn 6, beneath the frozen sky, twin suns begin to rise in tandem for the first time in recorded memory. On old Earth, deep within an abandoned resonance observatory in the Himalayas, systems long shut down suddenly reactivate. As scientist jolts awake from a dream of a woman with silver hair, of a child with a light in her chest, of a human voice whispering, "It's time." By week's end, representatives from 6 other resonance-linked worlds arrive on Kyriva, each having tracked the reactivated signal. They bring relics, memories, and questions. "We felt it," said a diplomat from Sirth, eyes wide. "Like a hand brushing our atmosphere. Like a song we forgot we knew." Elias stood before them, no longer just a reluctant scientist, no longer a man dragged into guardianship by accident. Now, he was a living key. He explained the core, the merge, the bond. He showed the data, the harmonic readings, the planetary stabilizations. But when he finished, he said something that wasn't in any chart. "We didn't plan to save Kyriva. We just fell in love." And the planet listened. Sci-Fi stepped onto the sanctuary's central platform, her armor polished, her voice clear, her daughter beside her, her consort behind her. "We cannot control love," she told the gathered emissaries. "But we can honor it. Build systems around it, not above it. And we can remember this: resonance is not magic. It is not myth. It is what happens when we choose each other. Fully. Freely." The chamber fell silent. And then applause. From species who had never clapped before. From leaders who had only known logic. From old enemies whose hearts shifted at the sound of that word. Choose. The planet responded in kind. Resonance towers, ancient structures built to transmit harmonic fields, rose from beneath the surface, one by one, across the globe. They weren't weapons. They weren't tech in the traditional sense. They were beacons of belonging. And when they aligned one after another, the network pulsed to life. 13 planets. 7 star systems. A song heard in places light hadn't touched in generations. That night, Elias stood on the observation ridge, just as he had that first week. Only now, he wasn't alone. Sci-Fi joined him, hair unbound, arms folded lightly. Naira ran barefoot through the moss below, laughing as her core glowed like a star in miniature. "We didn't just survive," he said quietly. "We started something." Sci-Fi nodded, her eyes reflecting constellations. "Harmony isn't a fixed state," she whispered. "It's a promise we renew every day. Every choice. Every time we reach for one another instead of turning away." Elias turned to her. "So let's keep reaching." They kissed under the silver moon, as Naira twirled and laughed in the light of the planet they'd brought back to life. The stars watched. And one by one, they answered. Chapter 12, She Was Just a Signal. Some stories don't end. They expand. The observatory had been silent for decades. A forgotten structure built into the cliffs overlooking Caira's new capital, New Foldra, a city reborn not by design, but by resonance. It stood now as a monument to emotion made real, to a love that had defied law, physics, and extinction. Elias Voss stood at the observatory's main window, a mug of bitterroot tea in one hand, his data pad in the other. Morning mist rolled over the crystalline valley. Resonance towers pulsed in the distance, humming with soft light. A signal chimed softly from the console beside him. Incoming transmission, Planetarix. Another dormant resonance node awakening. Another world, joining the harmony. He smiled, not because it surprised him but because it didn't. Behind him, soft footsteps. "You're up early," Sci-Fi murmured, sliding her arms around his waist. He leaned into her warmth without hesitation. "Another planet's responding," he said. "That makes 14. Soon it will be more." She turned him toward her, brushing his hair from his brow. The queen who had once held the galaxy at arm's length now wore no crown. No armor. Just a soft linen robe, and a smile reserved only for him. "I still remember the look on your face when I told you we were legally bound," she teased. "I still remember fainting inside, but pretending I had it under control." They both laughed quietly. Naira burst in moments later, taller now, her silver blue eyes bright with excitement. "You promised a story," she said, flopping between them on the viewing bench. "About what?" Elias asked. "About how you met. The real version. Not the council-approved one." Sci-Fi exchanged a look with Elias. "You want the real story?" he asked. Naira nodded. So he told it. Not the political version. Not the scientific paper. Just the truth. "There was a signal," he said. "Out in deep space. It shouldn't have existed. But I followed it anyway. And at the end of it, I didn't find a glitch. Or an artifact. Or even a world. I found you." He told her about the first time he saw her curled in the moss. How the planet bent to her fear. How she didn't speak but her silence said everything. He told her how Sci-Fi had arrived like a storm wrapped in starlight, and how he'd fought every instinct to run, to deflect, to isolate. And how bit by bit they stopped pretending. Sci-Fi picked up the thread. "You made us a family," she said to Naira. without meaning to, without asking to. But you reminded us that love isn't something you choose just once. It's something you choose every single day. And I chose him, she added, brushing Elias's cheek. Even when I didn't want to. Even when he burned the rations and named our kitchen bot after an earth fungus. Naira giggled. And I chose you, Elias said to both of them. Not because Allah said I had to. But because one day I woke up and realized, my life only made sense with you in it. The observatory lights pulsed. Another signal. This one, different. Not from a planet. Not from a drone. But from a child's voice, across the stars. Is anyone out there? Please. I'm scared. I don't know what this place is. Elias stood slowly. So did Saelri. Nero looked up. Is it another core? She whispered. He nodded. Another Naira. They didn't need to discuss it. The Finch had already been retrofitted. The core harmonics now stabilized across 3 sectors. And their family was not bound to any one world anymore. They left the next morning. A queen. A scientist. A child with starlight in her chest. The ship rose through soft atmosphere as the people of Cairo watched from terraces and towers, not mourning their departure, but celebrating their purpose. Because this family didn't stay. They answered. They chased every whisper in the dark. Every child crying through static. Every world that had forgotten how to feel. She was just a signal, Elias whispered, eyes fixed on the stars. And now, she's the reason the universe sings again.